and the Athletic Public Relations Director for 15 years before moving into his previous position as Director of Special Projects for University Relations. Prior to his time at West Lafayette, some of you might not know this, he was the Sports Information Director at Northwestern University, spent 4 years there. The Assistant Sports Information Director at the University of Michigan, spent 4 years there, and was the Sports Editor at the Ypsilanti Press for about 2.5 years. He is the former president of the College Sports Information Directors of America, or COSIDA, and he received the NIT COSIDA Presidential Citation in '97 and the Scoop Hutchins Lifetime Sports Information Director Award from the All-American Football Foundation in 2002 and was inducted into COSIDA's Hall of Fame in 2004. He's put into another Hall of Fame too. You're a famous guy. In 2012, he was honored by his alma mater, Central Michigan University, with induction into its Journalism Hall of Fame because he's a 1970 graduate of Central Michigan University, where he majored in journalism and was the student newspaper's sports editor. He is a life-loyal member of the Sigma Chi fraternity and an elder in his church. He is also the executive director of the National Football Foundation's Joe Tiller chapter of Northwest Indiana. That's what he's going to talk about today. And is an advisor to the Delta Delta chapter of Sigma Chi here at Purdue. And I'm going to jump backwards to talk about football, since that's what he's going to talk about. Among his accomplishments, Jim coordinated the Heisman Trophy campaigns for quarterback Jim Everett, who finished 6th in the balloting in 1985, fullback Mike Allstott, who finished 11th in the balloting in 1995, and quarterback Drew Brees, who finished 4th in 99 and 3rd in 2000 in the Heisman balloting. He's a Hudsonville, Michigan native, and his wife Marion, who works at Westside. She's worked with my kids now that they're getting a little more involved in athletics. They have 2 adult daughters, Jamie and Kim, who are both Purdue graduates. I am pleased to welcome my friend, Jim Vruggink.
Thank you, Jeff, and thanks to all of you. I really enjoy being here. Thanks for the nice lunch. I'm on a diet, so I only had salad, but it was a mountain of salad. So I'm not sure it really did its purpose, but you know, we'll see. Anyway, it is good to be here, and I really enjoy having an opportunity to talk a little bit about my hobby. I guess it has certainly become more than a hobby, but the National Football Foundation Joe Tiller chapter is near and dear to my heart, and you know, as I go through some of this, you'll probably figure out why. But anyway, many of you perhaps were in the room, or many of you are just too young to remember this, but back on a Thursday in the spring of 2003, we had a guest speaker here named Bernie Kish, who was the executive director of the College Football Hall of Fame up in South Bend. He came in to kind of expose us to the virtues of having a chapter of the National Football Foundation here in West Lafayette. And with the urging of Joe Tiller, who I think helped plant the seed of getting Bernie here in the first place, and also including a great deal of support from people like Noble Kaiser, the idea kind of took off to start a chapter here, especially when Joe Tiller said, Vruggink, look into that, we need a chapter here, do it. So, since my title at the time was Director of Special Projects, with the support of Morgan Burke and Joe Bennett, my 2 bosses, it became one of my special projects. And for one reason or another, all the combination of things hit right. And through Joe Tiller's support, and through Drew Brees coming back 7 years in a row to be the guest speaker at our annual honors dinner, we were able to build it into something pretty big. We became the second largest chapter in the country out of 121 chapters in really a short amount of time. We're now still one of the largest in the country, with 7th largest, and we are the largest chapter in the state of Michigan, state of Indiana, with Indianapolis, South Bend, and Evansville, the Jasper area also having chapters. But the combination of Joe Tiller's support and Drew Brees being here really helped us to get a lot of things accomplished. One of certainly the main focus and the reason that this was such a high priority was because, and I was a part of this when I was the sports information director and athletic PR guy, Purdue was very underrepresented in the College Football Hall of Fame and the Indiana Football Hall of Fame. And it was frustrating because we saw Notre Dame and Michigan and Ohio State and Michigan State, all these other schools getting player after player into these halls of fame and didn't really understand why we were falling short. And so when Joe Tiller came back from Wyoming, where he had been the head coach, he had discovered out there what a chapter can do. He had to start a chapter in Wyoming, which quickly became one of the largest in the country, and they were able to get their first former Wyoming Cowboy player into the College Football Hall of Fame because they stuffed the ballot box. That's exactly what our goal was. The College Football Hall of Fame is administered by the National Football Foundation. National Football Foundation was started back in the 1940s by General Douglas MacArthur and a lot of people from Army. Great tradition on the East Coast, and one of their offshoots was to start up the College Football Hall of Fame. Part of that is that every dues-paying member of the National Football Foundation gets a ballot in the selection process for who goes into the Hall of Fame. And so basically a large chapter can stuff the ballot box. So we did that, and we've accomplished that. Almost a little bit like, maybe not identical, but a little bit like what Donald Trump has done. So, but don't compare us to Donald Trump, not yet. We'll see. But anyway, what we were able to accomplish, we'd gone 16 years from Leroy Keys being inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame in 1990. Went 16 years before getting another one in. That was Mike Phipps in 2006. We've now had 5 players selected for induction in the last 10 years. So it works. We're getting the job done. We're getting people into the College Football Hall of Fame who deserve to be there. Mike Phipps, Mark Herman, Otis Armstrong, Dave Butts, and most recently Rod Woodson. And we've got a list of others who deserve to be in, and we're working toward that. One of my biggest challenges, and one of the reasons I really jumped on board with this, was my goal is going to be to get Drew Brees into the College Football Hall of Fame, but he's not eligible because he was not a first-team All-American, which is one of the criteria. Yeah, isn't that a shame? To me, that's going to be a black eye on the National Football Foundation and the College Football Hall of Fame if they don't put Drew Brees in. He's going to be in every other college. He's going to be in every other Hall of Fame that exists. And so one of the things I'm trying to do behind the scenes, I'm working with people down in Dallas in our national office, and trying to get to the point where they will make an exception. They've done it twice before for quarterbacks. In their 40, or almost more than that, 50-some year history. So my goal is to make Drew another exception, and hopefully they will listen to my reasoning. But so far, it's falling on deaf ears. So that's one of my driving forces, one of my main motivations here. The other thing, and this is an offshoot that we didn't really anticipate, but from the national office, one of the responsibilities of being a chapter in the National Football Foundation is that you provide scholarships and recognition for high school kids. So we have a program, and we solicit nominations from high school coaches all across our area. And by the way, our area, Northwest Indiana, covers from Tippecanoe County all the way up to Lake Michigan. So it's the Northwest quadrant. There are 70 high schools that play football in that area, and we solicit the coaches for their nominations of their top scholar athletes in their senior class. And we've been able to award over $190,000 in scholarships and honorariums to those kids over the last 12 years, or 11 years, this will be our 12th. And we've recognized 214 young men for their accomplishments. And it's based on, the nomination process is based 40% on academics, 40% on athletics, 20% on citizenship, good character, those kinds of things. So we're really getting the cream of the crop of the kids that are being nominated, and a number of those kids are coming to Purdue. They don't all go to Purdue, obviously, but we get a good share of them. And some of those kids have turned out to be interns for me in our National Football Foundation chapter, as well as in our trademarks licensing office. And so it's benefited me in some other, in additional ways. But the best thing and the most satisfying thing is giving these kids recognition in our annual dinner. And June 10th is this year's dinner. You have a one-page flyer on it in front of you, and it's always a fun experience because we kind of keep part of that is, in addition to giving 14 kids this year scholarships, we will name one of those kids as the Scholar Athlete of the Year, representing our area, and that kid will get a big trophy, almost as big as the Heisman Trophy, and he can take that home and put it on his mantle. And then he also becomes nominated for the state of Indiana Scholar Athlete of the Year among the other chapters in the state. And then there's also a process to be the Midwest representative of the Scholar Athlete of the Year, of which there are 5 regions in the country, and each region sends one kid who's chosen to go to New York City in December to be part of the NFF awards dinner, which is held at the Waldorf Astoria. It's a black tie event. Wonderful event, great experience for those kids. For most of them, they've never been to New York City before. And we've had 3 kids from our chapter who've been selected for that, including 2 from West Lafayette, Matt Lancaster and Daniel Wadika. And just getting feedback from those kids and the appreciation that they have for this whole program really makes it worthwhile. I get a great deal of satisfaction. It's a lot of work. It's a ton of work, especially this time of year, because I'm down to the last month of planning for this thing. And it does have a lot of different legs to it. The fundraising component is huge. The National Football Foundation is a 501c3 foundation, so it is all tax deductible, and contributions and donations and advertising and all those kinds of things feed into that. But we're not endowed. We don't have our scholarship program endowed like I would like to have it. Probably my goal before I drift off into the sunset with this is to have an endowment that will cover the scholarship bill for that. And I've got some people working on that. Hopefully we'll get some cooperation from some deep pockets, Drew Brees, hopefully. Although I told Drew when I worked with him and had the absolutely top of the mountain experience of going with him on the awards circuit, going to the Heisman Trophy presentation events in New York City 2 years in a row, and all of that. We became good friends, and I tremendously admire him and the friendship that we have. But I'd always told him, Drew, I'm never going to ask you for money, but I will ask you for some favors. And he's come through in a big way on those favors. And I have presented in front of him a plan for an endowment. And he said he's considering what he can do to help. I'm not going to ask for a dollar amount. I'm not going to beg him for money. He may have some totally different ideas. He's got all kinds of ideas to make money, believe me. And he's doing a wonderful job in so many areas with his foundation. And all the story about what Drew has done in New Orleans and in San Diego and other places, and even what he's done here with his relationship with PEFCU for many years, and the whole thing with the PALS program. Yeah, sorry. I spaced out on what that was called. It happens once in a while when you get older, space out of it. Yeah. Anyway, so the entire program is really satisfying, and I appreciate the support that all of you have given it. Kiwanis has been one of my most loyal supporters for this. Many of you have been to our dinners. Many of you have been involved in it. Some of you have even received some awards. Some I'm trying to give awards, and they go on vacation to Europe, and can't be here for it. But Roy, we'll get you next year. But anyway, he doesn't even know that. But he was nominated for one of our top awards, and we were going to give it to him at our June 10th honors dinner. And I found out he's going to be gone for 3 weeks. So I know you'll be around the next year. You can't go to Europe every year at that time, can you? No. Okay, right. So we'll get you next year. The only promise I need is that part of the program is going to be him reading "I Am an American." So I think that'll be a nice touch for our dinner, don't you think, Gary? You've been there. So anyway, Roy, now you know. That's why I asked you several weeks ago about that date, and I didn't go any further with it because it wasn't appropriate. We have somebody else, the second choice for this year, and that's Tom Spurgeon. So Tom Spurgeon, if you know, is the former president of the Board of Trustees and very involved in Purdue athletics and building buildings and all that kind of stuff. So, but anyway, Roy, I wanted to let you know that you have been selected for our Legends Award. And but you're not going to get the trophy until you show up. Anyway, I would really greatly encourage those of you who might be interested in this year's dinner. One of the things that we've done, and I didn't talk too much about this, but in addition to getting people into the College Football Hall of Fame, we also figured out the formula, totally separate, but now it's merged in with, of getting people into the Indiana Football Hall of Fame. And found out that, oh man, we are way behind. I mean, Leroy Keys was not in. Otis Armstrong was not in. And Rod Woodson is not in. And here's a kid who grew up in the state, had a great high school career, and is never nominated for the Indiana Football Hall of Fame. The Indiana Football Hall of Fame is dominated by IU former players. Purdue just never did a very good job of getting people nominated and getting them in. So one of my missions is to get that corrected. So we're nominating 3 people every year for the last couple of years, and we're getting them through the system. And so this year we're inducting Jim Young, former head football coach, very successful, 3 consecutive bowl wins, and Pete Quinn, who many of you know more as a radio broadcaster, the color commentator on the radio network for 24 years, who, by the way, will be calling his 300th game coming up. I think he said it's the IU game, the Bucket game this year will be his 300th game. But he also had a stellar high school career in Indianapolis at Cecina High School and was a 4-year starter and voted as Purdue's best center for the first 100 years of Purdue football. In fact, Pete likes to say that we have the cradle of quarterbacks. He is the cradle of centers. He is the one highest selected, highest honored center in Purdue history in football. So Pete also has a big ego, but we're gonna put him in the Indiana Football Hall of Fame. So anyway, that hopefully will make this year's honors dinner a special event. A lot of former players are coming back from all over the country to be part of that, and because Pete Quinn and Jim Young overlap each other, Pete played for Jim, and they've maintained a very close relationship for many years. Jim Young is now living in Tucson, Arizona, so he and his wife are coming back, and it'll be nice to have them back in town and to recognize them in this way. So anyway, this will mean at the end of this current nomination cycle, we will have inducted 6 former Purdue players or coaches into the Indiana Football Hall of Fame, with more to come. So hopefully we're getting all that accomplished. And back when Joe Tiller tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Vruggink, look into this and let's get it done," hopefully we're accomplishing what he had intended. So, and I think we are. So anyway, I just appreciate everybody's cooperation. The help that I've had from Jeff over the years has been enormous, and just really happy for the way things have gone. It's, you know, we're experiencing a little downturn in terms of support. There's no doubt about that. Just anything connected with Purdue football, we've seen it with the banquets and all that, you know, is struggling right now. So hopefully it's a temporary thing, and we're going to get it turned around here in the next few years and get things back to where we all feel they belong for Purdue football. And I think everything else will rise as we do that. So anyway, any questions? I'd be happy to expound on anything else that I can remember.
Who are the other quarterbacks that they broke the rule to get into the Hall of Fame?
Who are the other exceptions?
Fran Tarkington was one. I knew this at one time, but I forgot the other one. But there are some other outstanding quarterbacks that are not in the College Football Hall of Fame because they weren't first team All-Americans. One of them was they got Alabama. Namath. Joe Namath is not in the College Football Hall of Fame because he was not a first team All-American. And there is another. Joe Montana is not in the College Football Hall of Fame. So, hopefully Drew Brees will be, and we won't be adding Drew to that list of people that aren't in that should be in. So, any other questions? Anybody have anything else? I don't want. Chuck, yeah.
Is Drew coming back for the honors dinner?
Not this year. He was here for the football reunion the night before he was here the weekend of the spring game, and he was. It was kind of a whirlwind thing. He had made a commitment to come back for that because they did the groundbreaking for the new addition, the new building in football, and he and Brittany are the kind of the chairpersons for that fundraising campaign. And so they were there, had a big event. It was really nice, wonderful. Had a lot of the other donors were also there, he was planning. He brought his kids, brought his family for the first time, and they were planning to make a weekend out of it. Well, then that shooting that you heard about, the former New Orleans football player who was killed in a traffic misunderstanding, whatever, totally tragic. Well, the funeral was on Saturday afternoon, so Drew came in Friday, did some things, flew in a private jet down to. He and Brittany flew down to New Orleans for the funeral and flew back. They had left their kids here with a nanny, and so they had a nice weekend in West Lafayette, but it was sort of interrupted by an unfortunate trip to New Orleans. But anyway, Drew's terrific. Just so many positive things about that young man that I think you all share. There was one other thing I thought of as I was going through that, and another person that will be recognized, will be honored at our NFF Honors Dinner, and I hope this happens. He told me the other day, 80% sure he'll be here. But Doug DeVos is a great story. Most of you probably don't remember that name. He was a backup walk-on quarterback behind Jim Everett, Scott Campbell first, and then Jim Everett, back in the early 80s, and got into one game and threw one pass. Doug DeVos is the president of Amway. Now, so his father was Rich DeVos, who was one of the co-founders of Amway, and so Doug is now president of Amway International. He's absolutely loaded. You can imagine, one of the donors for the new building. Basically, a donor. They've been tremendously generous with their money in Grand Rapids. My family's from the Grand Rapids area, and several buildings in Grand Rapids have the Amway name or the DeVos and Van Andel names attached to them, and they've just been wonderful to work with. But Doug was a regular old walk-on quarterback at Purdue, and has gone on and had great success and has done a wonderful job. So we're recognizing people like that with the NFL Honors Dinner. We started the award. It's called the He Played Football Award. We started it 3 years ago with Francie Gutman. Anybody in here remember the name Francie Gutman? He was a backup quarterback who got into I think he started one game, and it happened to be an upset win at Michigan State in 1953 or 4, I'm not sure, one of those years, early 50s, when Purdue upset Michigan State in East Lansing, 6-0. He had the handoff that led to the only touchdown. But he went on from here to become CEO of Cleveland Clinic, and has had an amazing career in medical field. So, and then last year we recognized another backup quarterback, Carl Bergler, who was a walk-on. He played behind Drew Brees, never got into a game, but he was a backup. And as a student, because he wasn't on scholarship, he had to have some other fundraising, or some other means of income. So he delivered Jimmy John sandwiches. So the players used to call him up and make sure they had a delivery from Carl, and they teased him about it. Well, Carl is now CEO of Jimmy John's. And he sold Drew Brees, I think it's up to 12 franchises now. Drew has franchises all over New Orleans and in other places. And so they're working together again, but Carl was the walk-on backing up Drew, and now is successful. So we've got stories like that, throughout Purdue football. There are just wonderful stories of people who have had great success and maybe weren't the frontline players, but they learned a lot of values from football and all the positives about football. We got football's taken a lot of heavy hits, with all the concussions and stuff like that. And let me say that I'm going randomly on a few things. One of the other awards that we're giving at the NFF dinner this year is to the group of professors at Purdue who are doing the concussion study. You've probably heard about it. Larry Leverins, Tom Talmadge, and Eric Nauman are getting our award for the Bernie Flowers Award for contribution to amateur football, because they're helping, their research is hopefully going to make conditions safer for kids to play football in the future, and the development that they can hopefully lead the helmet companies into making a safer helmet or a safer process, or maybe changing rules that will help make football last. Because right now there are a lot of parents out there who say, I don't want my kid playing football because it's dangerous. Have them play soccer instead. Well, believe me, my wife is an athletic trainer, and she says soccer is worse than football because they take heavy hits and there's no helmets. There's very little protection. So they see more injuries in soccer than they see in football. But anyway. So, I'm rambling, but I'll be glad to handle any other question here before it's time to go. Right.
Any word on progress towards selecting the new AD?
I haven't heard any direct progress. I haven't heard any names, but I did hear the other day that they hope to have somebody in place sometime before the start of football. So that would probably mean late August. Yeah. So I think that's good timing. I think Morgan has done a wonderful job in building the facilities and doing a lot of the stuff that needed to be done in Purdue football. But quite frankly, he should not be the person to make the decision on the current football situation. And hopefully Darrell Hazel's going to do a great job this year and get it turned around, and we're off and running to great things. But if that doesn't happen, there's got to be some changes made, and you all know what I'm talking about. And it shouldn't be Morgan to execute all that. So hopefully a new athletic director will follow the course of Purdue. Let me say this. I am very encouraged by what's going on in the whole process. I had said many years ago that Purdue is a sleeping giant, from an athletic standpoint. We can be so much better than we are. We should be filling that football stadium every single week, with the number of graduates we have, the number of people we have on campus, the population that we have at our disposal in Chicago and Indianapolis and close by. There's no reason that I can think of that this shouldn't be a much better environment, much better situation for football. But it's got to start all the way at the very top. And I'm not sure we've always had that commitment all the way from the very top. But I think we have that now. Mike Berghoff is the president of the Board of Trustees, a former football player, another guy from the mid-'80s era. And he is heading up the selection process for the next AD. Personally, I think the next AD needs to have a strong football background and needs to make things happen. I like to compare Purdue's situation to the University of Wisconsin about 15, almost 20 years ago. They were awful in sports, if you remember. Back in the late 80s, early 90s, Their facilities were bad. Everything was downtrodden at Wisconsin. They're a great academic institution, but not much in athletics. Donna Shalala was their president at that time. I don't think she cared that much about athletics, but she understood the importance of what a great athletic program can do in raising the overall level of respect for the university. They hired an athletic director named Pat Richter, who had been an All-American football player in the 1960s. He had also was president of Oscar Mayer Wieners or whatever, and had a great career in business. He came in and started making the changes to get football straightened out. And they hired Barry Alvarez. Granted, sometimes the hirings go better than others. They made the right hire at the right time and got their program turned around, and everything else has fallen into place. You know, look at their success their programs had in basketball and football that they just hadn't had for many years. And the facilities are top notch. So all of that stuff, I think can be some strong parallels and lessons learned there. And I think if Purdue gets the right people in place, I think we can have a lot of fun here in athletics in the near future. So, any other questions?
We can take one more if there's one more.
By the way, all of this that I've said is off the record. Okay? I don't want anybody blogging that Jim Vruggink said this or that or whatever, but I'm still working for those people. So, just my opinion, just in conversation. Okay? Anything else? Thank you, Roy.
Since you're a former member of this club,
Yes.
remember that the door is always open.
I know. And you know that I was a member for many, many years, and when this NFF thing came along, I had to really focus my attention on that. So, I've been supportive of this group, but right now my financial support for all my donations, or a lot of my donations, goes into this NFF project. But once I phase out of that, and I'll probably never really totally get out of it because it means too much to me, but other people will have more responsibilities than I at some point. I'll be back in Kiwanis. I like what this organization stands for, what you do, the involvement. You're one of the survivors. A lot of the other service groups are shrinking away and falling by the wayside. But it's good to see this is a good, lively group, and I love the way you sing. So, thank you, everybody.
Jim, thanks a lot for sharing a little bit with us today. As I said, I'm a NFF board member, was longtime treasurer, so Jim and I have exchanged a lot of paper. And so I think this little token of our appreciation might be appropriate for you, kind of the flag sign here, because he was always having me sign things.
Yeah.
Get that and some Post-its, so hopefully you can put those to good use.
I'm sure I will.
Good.
Those will probably be gone in about 3 weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
There you go, Mr. President.